Anyone can play Marvel Snap, but few can see the future. Today we're learning how to predict your opponent's every move. Today I will be covering 10 different points on how you can predict your opponent and other related topics. I also have a lot of other strategy guides. There is a dedicated playlist. This is the 5th in that playlist, so if you need just other general advice, please take a look at that for more information. First up is to get very familiar with popular decks. As you can see, I have snap.untapped.gg pulled up. That is a website. There are a number of other websites that you can use as well if you are unfamiliar with the more popular decks. So what you can do is just start from the top in tier A and move. So click on here to expand out and see what is in the top move decks. So if you come across move, you know, okay, some of them have Juggernaut. There's Juggernaut here, Juggernaut down there. There's Spider-Punk. And this, by the way, these decks I'm showing right now will get out of date very quickly. So if you are watching this, maybe even a couple of weeks after this video was released, then don't rely on what you're seeing here. Please go check the website for yourself and get familiar with these top decks. Just having that knowledge helps you be better prepared when you need to read your opponents. Number 2 is to be familiar with synergies. So these are individual card synergies. So yes, you know the decks after you've reviewed them or you've played a bunch in game and gained that knowledge. You should know the individual card synergies. There are some popular ones. There's Cannonball and Mercury. So if you see Mercury come down, there's a high chance they're going to play Cannonball. There's Wong, which means there's a bunch of on-reveal cards. There's Thor, and then you have Misery and Odin with that. If you see Pixie, you know there's Mobius in their deck. So getting familiar with individual card synergies is important as well. That way, if you face somebody that's not playing a meta deck, you can start to recognize other cards that are in their deck, even if you're not familiar with that overall deck. Another one, Korg and Rockslide, and that means you have a Darkhawk. So getting familiar with these individual synergies will help you as well. Number 3 is, will I be countered? So you have all of this information on the decks that people are playing and the individual card synergies. So how do I know if I'm going to get countered? Well, if I'm playing Mr. Negative and I see Pixie come down on turn 2, I don't want to snap because I want to be cautious. I understand they have Mobius in their deck. You can really tell this if your opponent snaps on a later turn after you have played a card that ultimately can be vulnerable. I play a lot of Symbiote Spider-Man. People like to Red Guardian that card. So if they snap, Symbiote Spider-Man is turn 4. So if they have a Cosmo or a Red Guardian and they snap on turn 5, they've told me they have a direct counter to the card I played. That is what that snap is telling me. And so then I go, okay, can I pivot? Can I adjust? Because sometimes I'll just avoid that lane and I'll play in a different lane knowing they're going to counter Cosmic Ghost Rider. There are a bunch of counters. Now, if I have priority and I can weather the storm, then I'll stay. But that's how you can read if you will be countered. Now, if they don't snap and they counter you, no problem. You're still only losing 1 cube and your losses haven't doubled. So that will happen. You will get countered. This is just a how do you improve your chances. Number 4 is, when do you snap? So I will touch on this briefly, and it is just all of the stuff I've said up to this point, understanding your opponent, recognizing what they're doing. Sometimes you just want to snap early in the game. No problem. If you have a winning line, go ahead and snap. This is a game about percentages. You will lose. There's no 100% in this game. And so if you have a winning line, go ahead and snap. If they snap back, then you need to be aware if you have cards on the board that potentially a counter is coming, or if there's no cards on the board and they snap back, well, they just have a strong hand too. And it's just, okay, let's just see whose hand is stronger. And if you end up playing out the game As the game progresses, then you can determine if you need to retreat after that. What do you do if your opponent snaps? 2 questions, and you need to answer yes to both of them. Do you have the cards in your hand to win? If a snap happens, look at your hand. Do you have the cards that you need to win? Then stay. Or actually move on to question 2. Can you survive the potential counter? So this one doesn't always apply, especially if it's early in the game. But if you have cards on the board and they've snapped, can you win first, and then can you survive the potential counter that is coming? If both are true, you can stay. If either one of those is a no, you need to retreat. Of course, you will be wrong both ways. You won't know if you're wrong if you retreated. You will know if you stayed. And that's just part of the game. It happens to everybody, including myself. But overall, this is ultimately how I play the game and how I've hit infinite every single season. Number 6 is, what do I do if I'm wrong? So let's say you ignore some of this advice, or you listen to it perfectly and you're still wrong. Retreat, because you don't want your losses to double. So think about that. You go from 1 to 2, that is a 2-fold loss. You go from 2 to 4, or you go from 4 to 8. That is doubled losses. So another way to think about it is, if there's money on the table, you're giving somebody money, you want to give them as little as possible. So do you want to give them $1 or $2? Well, if I have to, only $1. I want to keep the extra. Am I going to give them 5 or 10? Well, I'm only 5 if I have to. Am I going to give them 100 or 200? Oh, what are you talking about? So you can see you don't want to double your losses. If you're going to lose, you want to minimize your losses. Please keep that in mind. Did my opponent draw the card they needed to win? Yes. Yes, they did. I can say that confidently because 75% of the time it is true. You draw 9 cards out of your 12-card deck. 9 divided by 12 is 0.75.
Man, do big maths!
That is 75%. Based on those odds, again, if somebody said, hey, do you want a 75% chance for me to give you $1 million, or do you want a 25% chance? You're not going to pick the 25% chance. You're going to pick the 75% chance every time. Now, 75% means you're wrong 25% of the time. That's how numbers work. But you want to be right the majority of the time. That is the aim in this game. Be right the majority of the time. And 75% of the time is a majority. So if you're hoping they didn't draw the card, you're going to be wrong 75% of the time. Think about that. And that is another way to read your opponent, by saying, well, yeah, they drew the card they needed to win. Number 8 is be familiar with your own deck. What does that have to do with your opponent? Well, if you're very familiar with your own deck, you can kind of play on autopilot. You know the many different lines at your disposal. You don't need to commit a bunch of brain power. That's why some people stay away from Cerebro and Move. It requires a lot of brain power. You have to focus on your own deck heavily. Whereas if you're using a simpler deck, you can now devote less brain power to your deck and more brain power to what your opponent's doing. The timer is limited for each turn.
Duh.
And so if I'm able to quickly figure out what my moves are, I can sit there and allow the timer to run and evaluate what my opponent wants to do. So there's limited time. The less time you're dedicating toward your own deck, the more time you're dedicated toward your opponent. No advice is true 100% of the time, and nothing replaces you actually playing the game. The way I learned all of this information, one, I used to watch a lot of content. I do it much less now because making content takes up time. But when I had the time, and even now, I go into Conquest. And what I do is I play out a game as real as possible. And then I go, if they snap, I say, well, Nerd said I should retreat here. I'm not going to. I'm going to play out this game, but I should have retreated here. And just see if you're right or wrong. See how many times you lose, track it, and then you can actually prove to yourself that this is some good advice. I mean, you should have just trusted me, but no, you really should see it for yourself. And so that is the best way to do it because there's no stakes in Conquest. You are just playing out games. Who cares if you win or lose? Because you're actually evaluating and seeing these scenarios in action to then apply it when you really need to. Am I playing a bot? I went back and forth on adding this one. That's why I put it as the last item. The bots are constantly being updated and constantly being made to look more human-like. So if you think you are not playing bots at all, you are actually playing bots. They are just so lifelike, you cannot tell the difference. And I could go through and outline some of the tells, some of the ways I know that I'm playing a bot, but they are updated frequently enough, and I don't want to have this video have outdated information, severely outdated information. And so it's just trying to stay on top of it as best as you can. Use sources like Reddit, ask me in my comments if you want, each season, because they get changed and updated. Right now, I am bouncing back and forth between a smooth climb to infinite and a slog of a climb to infinite because I swear they are updating these bots to be more human-like, which means I retreat against bots rather than having them let me win. And so I just have to throw it out there. It's important to know, but I'm sorry I just can't give you a little bit better advice on how to spot them because it's ever changing. Thanks to the members of the channel, and thank you to everybody that watches to the end of my videos. Is there anything I missed? Please let me know. It's very important for the people. This came out from somebody who messaged me on Discord asking how to spot counters. And that is what I covered in this video, along with some other related topics that fit neatly into how to read your opponent and what they want to do. If there are other topics that I have not covered in this video or the other videos in the playlist, please let me know, and I will create another strategy video. Thanks for watching to the very end, and thank you so much for helping this channel grow. It has been a blast. Until next time.